Good evening, live from ZTN headquarters in the capital city of Zimbabwe, Harare. Welcome to The Chase. Tonight's discussion, Zimbabwe's political dialogue, women's perspective. This live broadcast is brought to you by ZANU-PF's TV network, our broadcast partners, Capitalk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and Voice of America, which is going out to over 80 subsidiary channels worldwide. And of course, we'd like to thank our sponsors, the Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Good evening, I'm Andy Hodges.
And I'm Candice Mwakalyelye. Now, to our millions of viewers joining us online, we would love to hear your voice and want you to definitely join in this discussion. So do get on the Facebook page, which is Zim Television Network TV, and on Twitter we are at ZTN News. Do remember to let us know where you're watching us from, chime in on the conversation and let us know exactly what you'd like us to express to our panel today.
Now to our audiences again throughout the world, thank you for listening to us, not just watching us on ZANU-PF's TV network on Facebook, but also listening to us on radio. So with a big shout out to all the audience listening on Capitalk, Nyami Nyami FM and Diamond FM. Now to our esteemed panelists, welcome. Now you will be asked a question and be given 1 minute to respond. Now interjections may of course come in from time to time. We just ask please that you pass those through Candice or myself. Now, we'd like you to be civil yet vibrant, and and also, please, our values here at ZTN are dignity, dialogue, and debate.
And we as we now start with our conversation, we would like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves to our audience, starting, of course, with the lovely lady on my left, rather.
Thank you very much, Salibonani Makadini. Good evening to the viewers and listeners out there. My name is Linda Tsungirai Masarira, the president of Labour Economists and African Democrats, which is a new political party that is seeking to reset the people's agenda in Zimbabwe to ensure that every Zimbabwean has got a chance to participate in the governance issues in our country, and where we are going around Zimbabwe tapping on the organic grassroots intellectuals to come on board and map a way forward on what works for Zimbabwe.
My name is Apollonia Mzwerengwi, a senator, Minister of State for Provincial Affairs for Mashonaland East Province. I'm also the Secretary for Commissariat in the ZANU-PF. I am in charge of Mashonaland East as the Minister of State, and I'm in charge of each and everyone, a citizen in our province, and I'm responsible for their welfare, their day-to-day life, and the development of the province.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Bongai Muti. I am the Treasurer General of Zimbabwe People First. As Zimbabwe People First, we are an independent party, a party which we have just pulled out of the MDC alliance because of patriarchal reasons, the big brother mentality that the MDC leadership has. So we are in a standalone party. We are also going around the country, revamping our party, conscientizing the people of Zimbabwe and telling them how our party is the party of choice and why we are going forward to 23, looking forward to 2023, we are the party of choice.
Thank you. Mrs. Holland?
Yes, I chair two civil society organizations, the Zimbabwe Women in Politics and Peace Building, whose focus is on the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. And it's about prevention of violence in politics, participation of women in politics, and about promoting the women getting into politics. But really our focus is more on the violence women face within political spaces. The second one is the National Peace Trust, which focuses on mainstreaming as civil society on peace-building strategies which come from Ubuntu and from the process during the inclusive government, so that development really does have a base in peace.
Thank you very much for that, ladies. Now then, before we jump into the discussion, a very vibrant one we're expecting ahead of us, let's look at some background that we put together for you on this very, very important topic.
Zimbabwe has signed and ratified a number of regional and international instruments that call for gender equality in various spheres of life. In spite of the existence of supportive instruments, the country has not fared well in advancing the participation of women in politics. Whilst there have been moves to bring about parity in numeric terms, there is a glass ceiling for women in terms of how far they can go up the political ladder. There's been an endless cycle of victimization of women when it comes to voting, being elected for political office, or within political parties. The political climate since 2008 has been relatively calmer, and women have been more demanding of their rights to equal participation and representation. And the 2013 Constitution has provided a mechanism for realizing these ambitions. Furthermore, the fractured nature of the political parties seemed also to offer an opportunity for women to take advantage of this and forge solidarity alliances across political lines. The new Constitution of 2013 introduced a gender quota system which provided for the reservation of 60 seats for women based on a proportional representation system. The Zimbabwe Council of Churches, ZCC, is concerned about the declining economic situation in the country and believes it has a role to play in fostering an environment where brother meets brother, sister meets sister, in the spirit of understanding and peace. The ZCC is sponsoring this episode of The Chase. This discussion will help us all understand what is holding back the process, what are the issues to be discussed, and why women are not equally represented. To what extent are they contributing to their political parties, and how their united voice will assist to solve the economic and social challenges obtaining in the country.
Now, with that a bit of background, women are on record saying they need space, including in the media, to express themselves as leaders and to articulate the various issues that affect us as women. Now, in that same spirit, we've provided this platform for this program today, and we're thankful to those of you who have joined us. Now, sadly, we had invited the MDC Women's Affairs Chairperson, Paurina Mpariwa, and she had accepted our invitation initially, but then she changed her mind, saying that she had second thoughts and she could not be on the panel with some of the women that we've invited today. Now, some people have said that those who look down on women and denigrate on women are, sadly and ironically, the women themselves. Now, before we throw this question to the panel, we would like to hear your thoughts on this particular issue. So if you are interested in chiming in on this part of the conversation, please do send your messages via Twitter at ZTN News, or if you're using Facebook, the page to use is ZimPapers TV Network. Now, ladies, as I've said, we're very pleased that you've been able to join us. But we now have to ask you this very uncomfortable question. When we then say, I cannot sit with my fellow politician, my fellow women, because they're not of my level, what does that say about how you then view the woman who is not a politician? Are you truly representing the women? Linda, maybe I can start with you.
It's actually shocking that my sister Paulina had to say something like that, because we are at a stage in Zimbabwe where we are fighting for gender equality, where we are fighting for space. And when we get afforded that space, we have to utilize it. It's rather unfortunate that she has said these words, yet she is the chairperson of the Women's Assembly. She's got a constituency that she's representing. She's also a senator in our August House. And I really don't understand what made her say that, because this was an opportunity for her, which she had to engage with some of her party supporters. And I really would like to ask her to retract that statement, because we're at a time where we have to unite as women in our diversity to map a way forward on what we are supposed to do for the women in Zimbabwe. We cannot do it alone. Women constitute about 52% of the population in Zimbabwe, and we need each other regardless of our different political orientation. We've got a lot of issues that we have to sort out collectively as women in politics in Zimbabwe, and we would have loved to have her here, hearing her opinions as well, and for us to come out of this room saying this is what we have agreed as women in politics in Zimbabwe. It's rather unfortunate that she thought that we are all here not at her level.
Thank you. Vongai, perhaps?
It's a pity that...
Oh, sorry, I hadn't realized.
It's a pity because when you are a leader for the poor and for the rich. You are a leader who is supposed to represent every class of people. But then if you classify yourself to say, I belong to a certain class, and you claim to represent people, and you do not want to participate where issues concerning people are involved, then there's a problem.
Yes, I mean, of course, this is a discussion, a platform where actually we've asked women to come and discuss issues that affect them and also how it affects dialogue. And you heard what Candice said about the MDC. What would your comment be to that?
I think it's very sad. It's a sad moment for women at large. Unfortunately, it reflects badly in such a time like this. It reflects so badly on the MDC leadership at large. And it's beginning to show that what this lady has done is simply, she has these misogynistic tendencies that are well embedded in the leadership of MDC. Look at what they have done to Thokozani Kupe. And because she stood up for herself and said no to this nonsense. And unfortunately, Mpariwa is the direct opposite of that. And what she has just portrayed is a step backwards. It's taken women backwards. And we are here to take women forward. We want to occupy our political space in a positive way, in the positive light.
Mr.
Thank
Swaland?
Well, I think that in 2019, not just Zimbabwe, but the whole world needs to have a new narrative on how we see things. I feel that that statement reflects where individually and as a party they are, and I think we should actually learn from that and how to create solidarity platforms where we are able to take one another forward. And I really think that all the comments that are made here are appropriate, but what would be good would not be to feel antagonistic towards her and a MDC, because truly I'm a founder member of the MDC, and if in fact one day I hope you especially will have a panel on the history of political parties. All of them are women's initiatives, and they are built on women's backs. And that what we are seeing in Zimbabwe today in the MDC is tragic in that we are watching a new formation of youth with worse forms of patriarchy than what our grandparents had, and where nobody seems to have the courage to analyze and provide guidance on how things should be done. So I feel very sad to hear that that's what Pauline said. It's very sad.
Well, there you go. You heard exactly what the Women's Assembly Chairperson of the MDC said. But anyway, we're going to move into the discussion. But we also want to hear your views, please, live on Twitter at ZTN News and, of course, Facebook, ZimPapers TV Network. Anyway, let's move into the discussion, I think, shall we? Now, one of the things from the outside looking in, and I suppose it's a man asking you, it appears that this political dialogue process, maybe I can start with you, Pauline, it appears to be driven by men. Is that a true reflection of the pollad that's taking place that President Mnangagwa recently put in place when he called all political parties together? It seems that men seem to be at the forefront of this. Do you think that's a true statement?
It's not that men are at the forefront. Yes, President Mnangagwa is the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe right now. He has the mandate to mobilize and to bring everybody on the table. But he opened it up to all parties who are interested to come to join the dialogue. And for reference, Madame Kupe is also participating in the dialogue. And we've got quite a number of women who are in the dialogue. I'm also one of the women who are there. I have met my sister at some point. We're together. So it's not a men's group. All what we would want to see is a dialogue where all parties are involved, men and women. At the end of the day, what we are going to achieve is a result which will benefit every Zimbabwe, be it women, be it men. So the dialogue is open to both men and women.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone would like to comment on that?
To say that the issue of dialogue, when it now comes at the national level, is a result of conversations in homes, in church spaces, in playgrounds, in workplaces. And we've had some very, very interesting and extremely beneficial dialogue formations by ZCC for faith-based organizations. And we had one with the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, where Chief Mkwananzi said something extremely important. Happens to be my chief from Berengwa, so I remember clearly what he said. When the dialogue of the NPRC was ending, I realized that we'd made a mistake, because in things like that, the chief should speak first or at the end to summarize. But he had really been left out of the program. So he asked to speak. And what he said really struck me, that people in rural areas at the grassroots don't really appreciate or understand why the word national is used in reference to dialogue. Because when they see national dialogue, they see people in Harare doing their own thing, excluding everybody. And rather that what is more important is for people to focus on conversations in households, in communities, to bring that debate to the top. I think that the president has done a very brilliant thing to respond in his space to inviting political parties to open that space. But where things are now, it's very important for us as Zimbabweans to understand that the culture we have now is where we wait for people to do things for us, whereas society only moves when the people's initiatives are incorporated as part of what takes the nation forward. So I think the national dialogue process we should appreciate that it's an ongoing exercise all the time. And when something happens at the top, a lot has happened at the bottom.
I think that's a good comment there. It's a national process. It continues. It keeps going. It started and it's going forward. Linda, you had a comment?
Yes, I actually wanted to comment on the part where you said there are fewer women in the dialogue process. It all reflects on the political party structures. What are women doing in the political party setups? Where are they? We look at ZANU-PF, in their top 5, there's only 1 woman. In the MDC, in the top 5, there are only 2 women. So you see that manifesting in most political parties. Where are the women? They're waiting to be given that space. So naturally, when we get to go to these levels where we have to dialogue, you'll find that there are fewer women because they are not occupying the top positions in their parties. And secondly, it was actually a good idea, a noble idea per se, for the dialogue to start happening in Zimbabwe. But beyond the dialogue, we have to look and introspect at the Zimbabwean. What kind of mindset does the average Zimbabwean have? Most Zimbabweans are just generally now corrupt and unethical. And that is an attitude that every Zimbabwean has to change on. We need the creation of new men and move away from politics of personalities, from politics of patronage and sloganeering. We need solutions that work for Zimbabwe. And what are those solutions? Those solutions can only be found on the ground. So this dialogue naturally has to cascade to go to the lowest level in our society, which is the grassroots, which is the branch or the cell or the wards. That is where the people have to dialogue and come up with solutions that work for Zimbabwe. That is critically important, because beyond going down to the people on the ground, the president of this country, Emmerson Mnangagwa, has to come up with a mechanism to deal with the cartels and the rampant corruption in our country. Without dealing with the corruption in our country, there will be no economic growth. We won't be doing anything. We will continue dialoguing until the cocks come to roost. We need to find a way to deal with corruption as a nation. And if someone is found guilty, they have to be incarcerated. There are no two ways about that.
Thank you. Mungai, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit on what she said about the grassroots. It's not only the grassroots that we're looking at here. It's also affirmative action groups. We have the youths, we have the business, we have churches, and in our case, women generally. As a constituency, we need that kind of engagement. We need we appreciate the president has extended the olive branch for dialogue. But let me say, without maybe ruffling a few feathers, we don't trust the president. We do not trust ZANU-PF as per se, because it feels like they are extending the olive branch with one hand and they hide the other hand at the back. We don't know what's going to come next. We simply don't trust ZANU-PF. From history has taught us that that regime cannot be trusted. As much as I have said that, we appreciate that he has invited us for dialogue, and we are in for dialogue. As a political party, as Zimbabwe People First, we are in for dialogue. But we need a dialogue that has got a clear agenda, an agenda that is inclusive, an agenda that not only focuses on political parties, but as a national agenda, focuses on women, focuses on the disadvantaged, focuses on a whole lot of other things. We also need clarity on the principle of engagement of this dialogue. Not only that, we also need accountability, like she says, matters concerning concerning corruption, killing our country. We need accountability. We also need him to come out straight in the open, because we feel like he's hiding something. Let him say everything in the open. And this is what I'm offering. Come, let's talk together, and then we make our way forward.
Apollonia, is the president hiding something? Do you think ZANU-PF...
Sorry, Mrs. Just a minute.
No, sorry, think ZANU-PF cannot be trusted? You heard the comments from Vongai.
Let me say, for the first time for Zimbabweans, we have a listening president. And political parties are free to bring to the table what they think will be the best for the people of Zimbabwe. His door is open. And right now, he's going to line up a program for the dialogue committees to go around the country, listening to the people, taking what the people are saying. He's not going to implement anything from his office, but he is a listening president. He's saying, every Zimbabwean, come together. Let's see what is best for our people. So let's not suspect that the president, we cannot trust him. Why? What's the reason? He's saying, come, bring whatever you think is best for our people. So, and we need progressive minds. We need to solve problems for the people of Zimbabwe. Let's not put personal interest first. Let's put the interest of the people for the better of our country.
All right. Mrs. Holland, you had something to say to that.
Yes, I was just going to say, I think it's important for us to keep to the topic which brought us here. And I think the point that you missed of what I was saying was that today's society appears to me to be where people sit back and expect things to be done for them, thinking to be done for them. That's the point I was making. I think that for dialogue to work, I didn't say it should just focus on the grassroots. I said it starts in the family, and families are everywhere. It starts at the workplace. I'm just repeating what I said. And workplaces are everywhere. It starts at your schools, your churches. I'm saying that we must restore our understanding that a leader carries what the people want done. And I said also that we ourselves as women do not, for example, take advantage of what there is that has been done in the past by women. I remember your grandma as a young woman in Tanzania, looking after your mom as kids, and what you are today. Now, intergenerationally, if people follow through and understand what has happened, women would not be in such disastrous straits. They have so much material to build the women's space with what has been done. But what I see happening is women taking bricks of what has been done, throwing them away because they think they know better. I think my suggestion on the dialogue where women are concerned is for us to be appreciative of the spaces where we are and not denigrate where each woman is at, but to try and unite those efforts across all divides. And I think we will come up with what we need to secure the space for women, where statements like what Pauline is saying are not even necessary. So there is a saying that sisterhood is powerful. It comes from Africa, where women's spaces were always very clear and always defined.
Yes.
And I remember during the Liberation War that when I first got to Tanzania and Lusaka, they were just men struggling with nothing. And I said, where are the women? I said, people, are you aware that, in fact, if women come in also as a force, the war will go further quickly.
Definitely.
And the women's detachment came, and the women's detachment quickened the war.
Definitely.
So I'm saying that it's important for women to understand our power and the importance of us working together.
Definitely an important point. Thank you very much. Now, Linda, let me come to you. You did mention one of the problems with the current dialogue situation is the lack of women in numbers because of the political structures. Now, if you were given a chance to say this is how Pollard can refine the process to allow women to be a bit more included in the conversations and have their issues aired out a bit more, what would you then suggest?
I would suggest that we go by the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The Constitution of Zimbabwe is clear in Section 17 about gender balance. If they're going to have a meeting, it has to be gender balanced. They have to reach out. There are plenty of women who are in political circles, who are doing a lot of great things for their country, who are passionate about development issues in Zimbabwe. So for me, I really think they have to reconsider how they are structured, because there is no point of having a national conversation, a national dialogue with less than 10% women participating in that dialogue when women constitute 52% of the population in this country. It means that there is actually no representation for women, and there is nothing for women without women. So there has to be a way that they have to ensure gender balance in these meetings. Especially, I heard that they're going to be rolling out to the constituencies and the provinces when they get there. They also have to ensure that if they're going to be having a town hall meeting, maybe in Marondera where you are, there is at least 50-50 gender representation in the participants who come to dialogue. It is critically important to ensure that women start participating in governance issues. Women's issues are a constitutional provision. We're not crying out to be heard. It is our right to be heard as women. And women have to understand this. They have to know this. That is why it is critically important for women to be empowered at the grassroots. But you'll find that for a very long time, our politics has been centered at the highest level of the political party structure. And that has to change. It is a responsibility for every woman in politics to ensure that they empower every other woman, that they understand how governance issues work, they understand their rights, and they're able to stand up and say, we have to move this way as women in Zimbabwe. Women have got a lot of ideas, but they've just not been given that space, that opportunity to share.
Linda, if I can ask, you heard Von Guy saying that the trust issue as well. Do you have any comment on that, in the sense that she said she feels, or her party feels, the president gives with one hand and somewhere behind the back he's hiding something? What would you say to that?
I think we've been singing the same song for a very long time. And now we are at that juncture where every Zimbabwean has to work for Zimbabwe. There's no bell that is going to ring and say, Linda, it's now time to work for your own country. We need a change of mindset for every Zimbabwean. We need to start working for our country and not to expect miracles to happen, because the days when manna fell from heaven happened during the biblical era. We all have a responsibility as Zimbabweans to work for our country. No one is going to come and do anything for anyone, but we all have to plug into the development agenda. We all played a part as Zimbabweans to get to where we are right now, and we all have to work and sacrifice our time to ensure that we restore Zimbabwe to its former dignity. And as long as we continue saying we do not trust ZANU-PF, it does not work, because they are the ruling party. We have to work with them, give them our ideas to transform Zimbabwe. There is no way that any party that is not in power is going to transform Zimbabwe. But we have to go in with our ideas, our policy interventions, and make sure that we work together to rebuild Zimbabwe.
Okay. Thank you. Apollonia, I need to ask you this. ZANU-PF as a party now, not looking at it as the ruling party, but as a party, in terms of the political dialogue, what has the Women's League, have they come to the Women's League and asked, is there anything you'd like to put on the table in terms of dialogue? How have the Women's League been involved in the process within the party when it comes to the dialogue process?
I wouldn't want to comment on other parties, but as for ZANU-PF, we are 4 members in the dialogue, and we are 2 men and 2 women, which means they respect women in our party. And we are also allowed to contribute whatever we think will assist the people of this country. So we as ZANU-PF, I think you have even seen the president appointing 5 women ministers of state, 5 men. So he is leading by example.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I want to agree with Linda when she said we have to work with the ruling party, because if we work parallel, we are destroying ourselves as a nation, because you will continue to go against the wishes of the people instead of bringing what you think will contribute and support the interests of the people.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to take a breather. You can see that the debate is starting to really get exciting and interesting. Of course, before we go, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches, and of course our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM and Diamond FM, and of course you, our listeners and viewers. Please, we'd like to hear your views on Facebook page ZimPapers TV Network and Twitter at ZTN News. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. The debate continues on The Chase, Zimbabwe's political dialogue, women's perspective. Welcome back. This is live from ZTN headquarters in the capital city of Zimbabwe, Harare. And this is The Chase, Zimbabwe's political dialogue, women's perspective. Now then, we have an actual video that we want to show you to look at how did we get here? What are the issues that women may have to consider in terms of the dialogue? Please watch this.
Zimbabwe has signed and ratified a number of regional and international instruments that call for gender equality in various spheres of life. In spite of the existence of supportive instruments, the country has not fared well in advancing the participation of women in politics. Whilst there have been moves to bring about parity in numeric terms, there is a glass ceiling for women in terms of how far they can go up the political ladder. There's been an endless cycle of victimization of women when it comes to voting, being elected for political office, or within political parties. The political climate since 2008 has been relatively calmer, and women have been more demanding of their rights to equal participation and representation. And the 2013 Constitution has provided a mechanism for realizing these ambitions. Furthermore, the fractured nature of the political parties seemed also to offer an opportunity for women to take advantage of this and forge solidarity alliances across political lines. The new Constitution of 2013 introduced a gender quota system which provided for the reservation of 60 seats for women based on a proportional representation system. The Zimbabwe Council of Churches, ZCC, is concerned about the declining economic situation in the country and believes it has a role to play in fostering an environment where brother meets brother, sister meets sister, in the spirit of understanding and peace. The ZCC is sponsoring this episode of The Chase. This discussion will help us all understand what is holding back the process, what are the issues to be discussed, and why women are not equally represented. To what extent are they contributing to their political parties, and how their united voice will assist to solve the economic and social challenges obtaining in the country.
Well, there you go. You saw the view. You saw what we said about women in general.
All right, now let's take the discussion back to, let's start off with Wongai. Do you believe that the solutions to Zimbabwe's problems are entirely political?
I don't think they're entirely political, but I think the political aspect holds the greater responsibility. Why I say so? Because most decisions that affect people, that affect the ordinary Zimbabwean, are taken or are done at political levels. So I think that's where that is where it should start from.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Linda,
maybe? Linda, and then Mrs. Holland.
All right. From my perspective, I think that most of the problems we have in this country are political. There's a lack of political will to deal with the crisis that we have in this country. Like I said earlier, our biggest problem right now in Zimbabwe is corruption. And as long as we have not dealt with corruption, the cartels, and the unethical conduct of government officials, we are not going anywhere very soon. We need to find a way to deal with those. And I've implored several times for the president of this country, Emmerson Mnangagwa, to deal with corruption. There is no way we are going to progress. Even if Zimbabwe is open for business, there's no investor who will come and invest in a country that has got rampant corruption. We don't even have our own currency. We don't even know whether we're going or coming. Where the black market is thriving every day and the rates just keep on shooting. Which investor will come and invest in a country where there's no fiscal policies that are consistent? We need to sort out the political. We need to deal with the fuel cartels. We need to deal with corruption. And I'm confident that once we deal with these three things, we'll be able to chart Zimbabwe in the right trajectory, which will see Zimbabwe developing and sorting out all the other things that are not in order. Thank you.
Mrs. Holland, do you agree?
Well, I don't want to follow through that. I just wanted to say that the women in Zimbabwe are so well organized, but they are pinned in spaces where I don't know what strategy can be used. I'll take the churches, for example, ZCC itself. If you take the mainline churches and the women's union there and the work they do, it is just amazing. Yet in our debate, I don't see an inclusion of what they do. We went to visit some colleagues who are incarcerated in prison, and we were quite incredibly impressed with the kinds of things that women can do to actually get the voices of those women coming into our discourse so we understand the problems of the country. I would say, for me, women have got caught up in the spaces of complaining instead of getting each other into spaces of where they combine their efforts to move the process forward. The second point I want to make here is, if you are a teacher or a coach of a team, and the students or the team players are just seated waiting for you to do things, Zimbabweans are not, to me, seemingly responding to the spaces that are open to them, like ZCC has opened this space. Instead of coming here to say to one another, how do we work to advance what the ZCC infrastructure has given us, we are complaining. Now, ZCC is connected to the World Council of Churches. Zimbabwe, at every point, has institutional frameworks which are very old, which are connected to the international. But every time we get an opportunity to come together to see what we can do to move forward, we bury ourselves back. Australians call it whinging. I feel very frustrated whenever I meet in spaces like this, that we don't seem to be able to move out of where we are caught up in complaining to see the very important gifts every woman bears, every youth bears, everybody bears, and to say, how do we work our way forward?
Thank you,
and
Mrs.
I think
Anders,
that's the president's problem.
Okay.
That if you now look at him, instead of looking at, okay, you know that there are cartels, you know that there's corruption, I am waiting for a civil society action or some action from people which says, this is what we know, this is what we are going to do, and this is how we want to fight this. That's the conversation I would like to be involved with.
In fact, I think that this is exactly the next question. But before we do that, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches, of course, and our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, and Diamond FM, and Voice of America, going out to over 80 channels worldwide. And, of course, we'd like to thank you for watching and listening to us. I think I like what you're saying. Let's get to the nitty-gritties of this. Now then, in the political dialogue, in the talks, yes, what specifically would you believe, Apollonia, that women need to get on the agenda? What they need to put on that dialogue agenda? Let's start talking about the women's issues that need to be discussed at, for example, Paulat or in other dialogue forums. What would you propose?
The way I see our situation in the political dialogue, you know, when we have a situation like what we have now, the women are the most affected. And we are saying we have these cartels, we have corruption, instruments are there, but there is lack of respect and discipline within our community. There's no respect whatsoever. We are all aware that, for example, the fuel issue, they are given foreign currency. But before they go and purchase the fuel, they go to roadblock. For the next 3 days, they put the foreign currency into the black market, whilst queues are forming up. There's no respect whatsoever. They don't feel for the next person. And we are saying, who is supposed to say no to this? As women, what are we saying? We should not wait for the president to say this is wrong. Ourselves as the community, we should reach a point where we will all say today, for the next week we are not going to buy bread. It will go rotten. Those people, they will incur losses, and they will realize that women are being touched. Our children, ourselves as women, I think ourselves as women, if we can stand up and say, no, we can change things.
Okay, let's look at the agenda, for example. And what about issues such as gender violence or sexual harassment? Are these the sort of things that should be involved in a dialogue process as well? Not like there's bigger issues, as you said. There's fuel, there's women's rights to buy bread and so forth, or boycotting certain things. But what about those issues that directly affect women, like gender violence, rape, protection from the law for women, and so on? Are those things going to be on the agenda item in Poland?
It's mostly that it's one of the critical issues, because the most affected group in a violent situation are women and girls.
Vongai, let me bring you in. You had a very strong response to Apollonia's statement. Let's maybe ask you to air that out.
Okay, what I wanted to say was we understand what she's saying. But that is not the solution. Boycotting bread, boycotting buying groceries is not the solution. Look, I'm a mother. I have children at home. I have extended family, some of them who are sick. I'm going through all these problems, right? I cannot just wake up one day and decide, because I have suffered too much, I'm not going to buy bread, to send a message to whoever, to the cartels, to the president, or whoever. No, that's not the solution. What I do is, as a mother, I go to the authorities, right, and plead my case with the president in this case. We have, like I said, we appreciate what the president has done, in as much as we don't trust him. But we love what he has done. He's extended this hand. Thank you, Mr. President. But we have problems. Look, our children are dying. We have no access to proper health care. We have no access to, our girls have no access to proper sanitary way. Our children cannot have access to good education. And all these social abnormalities going on in our societies, we cannot just fix them just by sitting down and boycotting. We need our president as the leader, to take action. We have our part that we play, yes, but the greater role is taken from the political stages.
Apollonia, I think you want to respond, and Linda, we will come to you, don't worry. Apollonia?
We'll come to you.
What I'm saying is a collective action. It is not supposed to be an individual decision. I said instruments are there. There are people who are only there to destroy, to shoot down whatever good decisions made. So we are saying, at the end of the day, we need to stand up and say, no, enough is enough.
All right, Mrs. Holland, you also had something to add to that statement. Let me give you a few seconds to respond to it.
No, I'm just saying, at the beginning I said, we really need new narratives, new methods of dealing with the situation we are in now. That's one. Number two, I was just going to say, we are speaking as people who really don't have the ideas of what is being asked of us. In the past 2 weeks, the Women's Coalition held a workshop with organizations from around the country to prepare women to come up with the strategies and ideas to input into a national dialogue, which would be inclusive and have everybody. And I was really impressed with the diversity of women's interests and issues. And they were not about women. They were about families, boys and girls. The issue of violence, people, let us restructure what's going on. Every day when I go into town, I see a group of little boys who sleep in the bush. There's not one little girl there. And who then, around 10 o'clock, start begging. Is that not violence against that particular group? We really need to restructure and rethink what's going on in our country and to address those things and to input them into the UN structural problem-solving things through the ZCC, which is offering us these channels. So I'm saying people are preparing to get into the national dialogue.
All right. Linda?
Okay. I want to say, maybe kanditinatsotara nechishona zvinonzi hatifaniri kurova imbwa takaviga mupinyi. Apollonia here was saying these people are disrespecting. Gatisataura kuti these people when we know who these people are. It's Billy Rochenberg, it's Kudata Gwire, and etc., etc. These people are just being protected because they also come and fund in political parties. But at the end of the day, I think I see Vanave Zimbabwe suffer because of a few individuals.
No.
So this decision has to be made at the highest level. How are we going to deal with these people? Zimbabweans have suffered enough. We cannot continue like this. Look at our children in the streets. They say they're down with the bronco, mbanje, and everything else. Drug and substance abuse. Last year, I came to the budgetary portfolio committee and I asked could Patriotism set aside money to deal with drug and substance abuse. But they ignored it because maybe most of the people there are affluent enough and their children are not involved in that. But go to Epworth, go to Zarasekwa, go to Bulawayo, there at the ghetto, and see what the youth are succumbing themselves to. They are futureless, they are hopeless, they are going nowhere. And these are critical issues that we're supposed to be focusing on as a nation. Because our children, we are going to lose a generation in the process. Because most of these children are not working. Is this what we are saying as mothers? Could we are just going to watch our children just because our president and the ruling party are failing to deal with the cartels? There has to be a way we have to deal with this as mothers, as the church, as women politicians. How are we going to deal with this? We need an agenda that will deal with the drug and substance abuse. We need to deal with Nyaema cartels. And then I am very concerned about this cartels issue because they've destroyed families. Our social fabric
Linda,
is
I want to
broken.
catch you while you're still heated. And you've raised something very important. How do we as women, for you, especially as women politicians, ensure that women's issues, youth issues are brought to the table, not only at Poland, but at national dialogue, any national dialogue forum that's taking place? How do you, as the women in politics, ensure that these issues are raised and are dealt with significantly?
From our party lead, we are actually drawing up a white paper on the issues that we feel are supposed to be given preference at the national dialogue. We're also looking at the issues to do with property rights. You'll find that most of the women in Zimbabwe live in rural areas, but do they have titles to the property that they have? No, they don't. Can they access a loan to advance their subsistence farming, to move it to the next level, to be commercial farming? No, they can't. We've got women in Mutoko Murewa who do tomatoes. They do nice tomatoes, organic tomatoes, which are selling for about $4 one in the Middle East. But why are we not opening up markets for those women to be able to be economically empowered? There is lack of political will, but those are issues that us women have to take forward to ensure that every woman is empowered. We've got vakadzi vari kukorokoza, but vari kuvarwa. Even I want a gold rakeroro going into those pits. They are selling those gold at a pittance because they don't even understand the true value of what they are extracting. So these are issues that women have to take forward to ensure that women become economically empowered and that they can take care of their families and that the youth have got something to do.
Thank you. Now, we did, of course, ask the MDC to join us, the Women's Affairs chairperson, and they did accept our invitation to come here to ZTN in this debate, and then eventually they said no, they wouldn't like it because they thought they wouldn't sit with some of the ladies around here. So I want to ask this question, though, because it is a very relevant question. The MDC, of course, being the main opposition party, and they are not part of POLAD. They're not part of the dialogue process. They're not part of the dialogue process. And, of course, they contend that without them at the table, nothing will happen. Now, and then, of course, they put preconditions. And one of them, of course, as we know, is legitimacy issue, that's the issue that they're talking about. So how do you feel, Apollonia, if I can to ask you this question? Is the MDC required at that table in terms of for the dialogue to be effective? Or not?
The issue of illegitimacy is no longer an issue. That is now water under the bridge. And for us to say we cannot move on just because MDC is not there, it's not an issue to us. We will move with those who want to serve the interests of the people.
So whether the MDC there is
whether
not...
Whether the MDC are in or out...
Dialogue will continue.
Dialogue will continue.
Yeah. Maybe let's throw it to Wongai. As a member of an opposition party, do you agree with what Apollonia has just said, that, with or without you at the table, we will continue and we will get results?
I I think the dialogue can continue and will continue without the MDC. Because this defense that they have, that they are putting in front, that because they are questioning the legitimacy of the presidency, I think that issue has already been dealt with, and it is retrogressive. We are waiting for people, or we want to move with people who want to move forward. If you want to stay where you are because you think you have numbers, listen, people are suffering out there. People are suffering at the grassroots, like she was saying. We need solutions. And I will emphasize again that we appreciate what the president has done to make our lives easier, to make, as women, to make lives easier for the ordinary Zimbabwean. Let us work together for the common good of the Zimbabwe.
Okay, I think before we get in and get more comments, please understand, of course, that these are the panelists' viewpoint, not necessarily the views or not the views of ZTN or Zim Papers Group. This is a debate and a discussion, so of course people are free to air their views in any way they like, with reasonable dignity and respect for each other. Right. I'd like to go, Ms. Holland, and then we come to you.
I was going to ask us not to dwell too much on people who have said they don't want to appear here and spend the time with people who are here. Now, the question here would be, if indeed this was the main opposition party, why there would be this reluctance to participate with everybody else. So I think that for myself, sitting in my house, all these actions show that indeed they may not have the confidence that they're the majority. Number two, the opposition as a whole is going through a period of coming together. So is the ruling party itself. And I think that the political fluidity that is taking place is where our colleagues are caught up in, and they're trying to measure just how much they have. But in conclusion, really, I just wanted to say there are lots of things that people are doing on the ground and in different spaces, contributing to even where the government today is making a lot of very important moves forward. I don't know why Zimbabweans have such short memories. November 17, 2017, Zimbabwe made history. We went into the streets together with a military that has got really incredible historical roots in liberation, in the best institutions in Moscow, in London, in Beijing, who showed us theatrically how to remove very peacefully, respectfully, the old order and bring in the new. What Zimbabweans have failed to do is to take that opportunity and join in the spirit of rebuilding moving forward. That's what I'm missing. And those who are building and moving forward, like we are doing in the National Peace Trust, like we are doing in Women in Politics and Peace Building, like many other organizations are doing, people who are not sure of where they stand keep throwing mud at that, saying all sorts of negative things. I think the spirit we should take is to look at what ZCC is doing and offering, look at the mainline women's churchy groups and what they're doing. Look at all the different, really important civil society actions that are taking place to join the political process and take the country forward.
Okay, before we move to Linda, we'd just like to thank, of course, our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches, and our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and of course Voice of America, that is going out to 80 channels. And of course, as we said, the views expressed here are the views of the panelists and not those of ZTN or Zim Papers Group. We advocate here at ZTN an open debate, and people can say, however, they are not our views of ZTN or Zim Papers Group.
Right, now remember that we do want to hear your voice in this conversation, so do join us on social media. If you're on Facebook, it is Zim Papers TV Network. If you are on Twitter, it is at ZTN News. And of course, we are continuing with this debate, talking to the ladies. And Linda, you had something that you wanted to add to this conversation.
Exactly. What I wanted to say is Let's take, for example, Hillary Clinton. She has raised issues of rigging in the elections where Donald Trump won, but she's still patriotic. She's still working for her country, and she's still representing the interests of Americans. And I actually implore my brother Nelson Chamisa to take a few notes from Hillary Clinton. If he indeed has the solutions to fix Zimbabwe, he should come to the table and say, these are the solutions that I have for the betterment of every Zimbabwean and the 2.6 million people he claims voted for him. That is what we need. We need a spirit of patriotism. We need to work together for Zimbabweans, to uplift the Zimbabweans from the pain and suffering they're going through right now. So I think it is critically important for us to be able to work together in our diversity, with our different political orientations, but to put Zimbabweans first and to be able to build a nation. At this juncture, we need to come up with uniting Zimbabweans, to have one collective vision of what we want for Zimbabwe. That is what is critically important right now. These egocentric opinions and everything else is not what we need right now. We need to work together, come up with one common national vision that works for Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we'll have to take a breather now, but after we come back from the breather, we're going to have your questions that you sent us via our Twitter handle @ZTN News, and of course Facebook Zim Papers TV network, and of course through our other channels. So don't go away, because after the breather we're going to be hearing from you directly, and we'll be asking the panelists your questions. See you just now. Welcome back to ZTN headquarters, live from Harare, Zimbabwe. This is The Chase, Zimbabwe's political dialogue, women's perspective. And this is the part of the show where we hear from you, our social media, and also, of course, from our Facebook page, Zim Papers TV Network, or Twitter @ZTN News. We'd like to thank, of course, our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and Voice of America, going out to 80 channels worldwide. And, of course, our sponsor, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Now then, before we get to our questions, I got a big shout-out for all of you out there. In fact, we've got people listening and watching from all around the world. Munyarazi Sean Zepete, watching from Beijing, China. Tapiwa Chisango, here in Harare. Ako Joed Dambanyemwea, Cape Town. Becky Temba MC Banda from Harare. Jin La Feng to that Vanderbilt Park. Timothy Gumbi from Mozambique base of Nyazonia. Anyway Musakwa in Harare. Terence Nyaradzino watching from Harare. Simbarashi Chihora from Cape Town. Edwin Mafa from Cape Town. And, of course, Gift Gabriel Komboni from Turkey. Well, welcome to you all, and welcome to ZTN headquarters and, of course, The Chase.
And it's really nice to see some of these names are very familiar names now. They watch us almost every evening.
Yes,
so we do appreciate your viewership.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, thank you. Now, then, let's jump into a question. Now, from the social media. As we promote the conversations concerning the development of Zimbabwe in families, schools, communities, etc., how best can we guarantee the protection of these gatherings as discussions concerning politics are marred by violence and intimidation? As women, how do we protect our voices? Maybe I can start with you, Linda.
Women's voices are constitutionally protected. And I think we have seen a shift ever since 17 November 2017, where even political meetings have less violence. And we have seen the democratization of the political space in Zimbabwe. And we have to give credit where it's due. It's just that sometimes we are so resistant to change, and we still want to hold on to things that happened in the Mugabe regime. But personally, I have seen a difference in the way that even the police now treats political, parties, when they want to gather. It used to be a mammoth task just to go and get, to notify the police and to be told that you can go ahead with your meeting. But nowadays, in exactly 2 days, you are cleared and you can do your meeting and everything else. So I would personally say, I think the political space for meetings is now much safer, and people have been meeting with less violence, save for a few parties who prefer using violence to make a statement. But from my own perspective, I would really like to encourage everyone who still thinks that violence can be used for conflict resolution. Violence is not the solution. We all have to work towards peace building.
Thank you. Apollonia, the question, of course, was, can women feel protected when they're out there in political spaces with their voices? How do they protect their voices and make them be heard?
Definitely there's peace in the country at the moment. Political parties are allowed to do their meetings freely. Organizations, associations, churches. So it's a true indication that there is peace and voices are protected.
I think maybe to maybe shift the question in a different direction and say, okay, so I think really here what we're trying to establish is, how do the women feel safe expressing their views? If I feel I want to make a contribution to the dialogue, and I feel maybe it might ruffle a few feathers, how do I know that I'm safe to say what I need to say respectfully and still come out of it in one piece?
I just said at the beginning that women in politics and peace building focus on UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Zimbabwe has the most educated population. We have got laws, regulations, systems in place. Ours as women is to take those, implement them for our protection. For example, you say, how do women protect themselves? The work that has been done at the United Nations level throughout the liberation struggle, throughout our new independence, throughout up to now, we have got a whole lot of protective measures that have been done for us. It's up to us as women to educate ourselves on those and implement those. I just wanted also to say that the best gift that came right at the beginning after November 17 was the freedoms that we suddenly started to enjoy. And what people don't actually pay attention to is that it is because those freedoms are now about that we can even talk about national dialogue, because the president from November 17 talked about peace, unity, and development. And he encouraged people to work towards peaceful elections. That was all achieved. The opposition came with a challenge and language that was the opposite up to today. And I think that it's really up to us as Zimbabweans and as a society to use the existing structures that we have developed ourselves to then protect families, communities, and the institutions where we are. All those tools are there. And I think really my frustration is that that is not what we are talking about. And ZCC has a whole lot of programs that are daily taking place among the women, the youth, and if you look at their calendar, they're publicly available. And this Saturday, it's the Day of the Father, I think, and we are going to the park as families, I hope, with ZCC program to really celebrate a safe space that they are creating for us to build on and make other spaces safer. We should really use these kinds of programs to talk about the achievements, the many achievements that have been done since November 17. There are lots of them.
I think what is nice, of course, is we're talking as well, apart from the women's issues, we're talking family as well, and I think that is critical.
Yes.
And the way, and funnily enough, and here I am as a man saying this, of course, but it's the woman that keeps the family together. I think I know from my own mother. We would like to thank, of course, our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, and Diamond FM, and of course, Voice of America, going out to 80 channels around the world, and of course, our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Now then, we have a question here. Unfortunately, it says, my name is Stephen, position national spokesperson. That's all it says. But anyway, we have withdrawn from the alliance. Are we allowed to join the dialogue? However, we are the third largest party in terms of membership subscriptions. Zimbabweans have suffered far too long, and we believe the rally point for all Zimbabweans at this junction should be what is in the best interests of Zimbabweans.
So I think he's also agreeing with what Linda said earlier on, that we need to focus, as well as Mrs. Holland, we need to focus on rebuilding Zimbabwe. And that should be one of our biggest messages.
And of course, one of the messages you said, Wangai, was like, you talked about trust. I think sometimes you have to trust to go forward.
We have.
Apollonia, any comment on this?
I want to agree with him. To say we need progressive minds. We need to come together. We need to put the interests of the people first before our personal
Asking
interests.
whether he can join the dialogue.
Yes, he could.
But
National spokesman, can we join the dialogue? We've withdrawn from the alliance.
Can we invited everybody?
Yes.
So everybody is part of the dialogue. They're free to join at any time. Even those who are pulled out before are free to come back.
I am not qualified to say that at the moment, but I think there is room for a genuine party which wants to come to join the dialogue.
Yes.
There's no definition of genuine party.
Now, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our program. But before I do, I'll be remiss not to ask you, Apollonia, because this is the question that, of course, is has been asked a lot. Now, as you know, your own ZANU-PF has a policy that one of the presidium seats, the vice president seat, is reserved for a woman. And at the moment, we have 2 male vice presidents. So technically, 1 seat should be for a woman. What is the Women's League position on that, or the party's position on that? Has the president indicated that situation?
Yes, we do have that in our constitution. But as and when.
As and when.
As and when.
Okay. As and when is the answer.
Yes.
Okay.
When the right time and the right maybe candidate, nothing will stop.
Are you saying there's no right candidate right
No,
now?
I'm saying at the right time.
At the right time.
No, but to help her, to help Polonia, in Australia, now, the Labour Party has just got a new president because the old one lost this election, and in a democracy, if you lose 2 elections, you resign. Anyway, their policy also is to have a woman deputy president. And the women all withdrew because they said the stars are not aligned for a woman.
The stars are not aligned.
So a man has come in as deputy president with the women's agreement.
So at the right time.
At the right time and with agreement. I think that's the important part. With the women's agreement.
So the women at the moment are happy at the current situation. At the right time.
Yes.
So that's what there is.
Very quickly.
Very quickly, one of our expectations as women, or women from my political party, which is...
All right, now, guys, so I will stop you there because that is actually my next question. And I want it to be our final question for the evening, so I wanted to go round the table before we then give you a chance to give your final remarks. Right. So I will start with Linda. What is your expectation?
My expectations of the Polar Dialogue is that women will come out victors in this whole process, because we have been suffering from systematic marginalization for a very long time. And it's time that every woman who's at Pollard makes sure that women occupy their spaces. You don't have to wait for someone to come and give you power on a silver platter, because that doesn't happen. You have to fight tooth and nail and occupy that space. And I'm encouraging every woman in politics to be able to participate in this national dialogue, to be able to bring in those issues that are affecting the women's constituency, and that for this time, 2019 to 2023, before the election campaign starts, let's come out of the election mode. Let's come with solutions that work for Zimbabwean women and advance our agenda as Zimbabwean women, collectively united in our diversity. This thing that I'm ZANU-PF, I'm MDC, I'm LEAD, etc., we should just put it aside and push the women's agenda first. That is what is critically important. Because when a problem comes, it doesn't look at the political T-shirt that you're wearing. A problem is a problem, poverty is real, and our war should be against poverty, and how we ensure that every Zimbabwean has got a sustained livelihood which ensures sustainable human development. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Apollonia?
Together with my colleagues, my women colleagues from other political parties, we are going to pursue the issues concerning women. What is going to benefit all women in Zimbabwe is what we are there for as women, not as a political party representing ZANU-PF, but the interests of women. So all of us as women in the dialogue, we should look forward to achieve what will benefit the women.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, you can see we can talk all night, as we always do on The Chase. And as we said, on The Chase, the views expressed are by participants and not ZTN's or ZimPaper's group. What ZTN does is give a space for dialogue and open sharing and of views with each other and with you, the viewers. Anyway, we would like to thank, of course, our broadcast partners, Capitalk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and, of course, our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches, and, of course, Voice of America. That'll be out there, 80 channels. So wherever you are in the world, you can either watch or listen to us here at ZTN headquarters in Harare, Zimbabwe. Now, before we go, of course, we'd like to just get a final word from you, just a minute each, please, on the comment, the final comment on just your position on what you think.
Okay, can I?
Yes.
Yes.
I was saying that we are lobbying. We want to engage the president. We want to engage the dialogue on the issue of an independent convener. It's something that we are expecting to be addressed now at the early stages of the dialogue, so that there is impartiality, so that there's partiality. Remember, I raised the issues of trustworthiness or trust earlier in the beginning. We need an independent convener. Looking at 2013, we also had a mediator. During 2008, during that era, we had a mediator. We also want an impartial mediator.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Right, let's have our final words, please, if I may. Starting with
My final word is there is nothing for Zimbabweans without Zimbabweans. It is time for us to unite in our diversity and work for our country. That is what is critically important. Going forward, we need to stand united and soldier on forward and come up with solutions that work for Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Apollonia?
I'm urging all Zimbabweans to promote unity and peace. We need peace. We are a lovely country, and we need to remain with the peace that we are enjoying at the moment. So the dialogue should bring peace and unity.
Thank you.
I urge all women to take advantage of the political spaces which have been made available for us, to speak up and express ourselves effectively so that we are heard where we are supposed to be heard and make a change or difference in our country.
Thank you.
I just want to say that in this dialogue space that we've created since November 17, 2017, we must thank the ZCC for having been bold to start the whole ball rolling on national dialogue. And to say that there are lots and lots of efforts and preparations for people to participate in the dialogue, and that civil society is making very important strides in this. But really to say, charity begins at home. I have never understood the demand for an independent mediator, because Zimbabwe has the structures, has the people, very brilliant to take us forward in this process, because it's only us who really understand our problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that.
Now, a special thank you to our sponsors, of course, the Zimbabwe Council of Churches, our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and the Voice of America for beaming this throughout the world for us tonight. Now, for tonight's broadcast, to our online audience, and viewers from across the world, we want to say thank you. Our conversation does continue online. Remember that we have given you the correct handles. If you're on Twitter, at ZTN News, on Facebook, ZimPapers TV Network. Those are the correct platforms to use to continue the conversation. But for today, we are done, and we hope to see you next week.
Yes, we will, because, of course, this dialogue continues. And, of course, the chase continues every week with myself and Candice. So I'd hope to see you next week and future weeks to come. All we can really say is thank you to our panelists. It's been a very enlightening discussion. We appreciate that. And all of you out there, take care of each other and have a good night.
Good night.